Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here, and thank you to those who are watching the recording. This is our Rising Sixth Grade meeting, so Class 6 at Lotus and Ivy. We have our two Class 6 main lesson teachers here today because we have two main lessons here at Lotus and Ivy, a 10:30 a.m. Eastern and a 12 p.m. Eastern. And then we have our Class 6 math teacher here, who is also one of the main lesson teachers. And then our Class 6 language arts teacher, Ms. Higgins. So we're going to start with Ms. Domokos, and then Mr. Gay will speak, then Ms. Higgins. Then I'll talk a little bit about some of the complements who teachers are not here to represent. The meeting should only last 30 minutes at the most, and we'll answer any questions that you have at the end. All right, thank you. Olga, go ahead.
Hi everyone, my name is Olga Domokos and I'm joining you from South Florida, where I call Florida home for the last, it's been 11 years now. I grew up in Hungary, that's where I come from. And I have been a teacher with Lotus and Ivy since the beginning. This is my 5th year. And I've really enjoyed connecting, meeting students from around the United States and Canada and really across the globe. My background, I had a business degree that I started my career with, but I very quickly transitioned to education. I raised my 3 children who went to Waldorf schools, and then I just loved their schools and what they were learning and how they were learning and the people that they became. So I decided to become a Waldorf teacher myself. And I worked at our local Waldorf school here in Florida before joining Lotus and Ivy. I have been teaching main lessons in the middle school and math, and I am very excited to be one of the 6th grade main lesson teachers along with Mr. Gay in the upcoming school year. Currently, I am with the 5th graders, and I'm looking forward to this beautiful extension as we continue to move in the curriculum, following the children's growth and development and their curiosity with new topics that are introduced in the 6th grade. So I'm going to I'm going to give you some highlights from the curriculum. We'll begin with Roman history, which nicely fits with our Greek history and mythology that we are actually right now, as we're making this recording, that I'm teaching to the 5th graders. So we're deep in the stories of Homer and all the wonderful and incredibly fascinating Greek gods. And Roman history sometimes feel like, oh, it was such a long time ago, it was so far away. But if we think about our society today and our lives today, there is so much that has roots in Rome and Greece, our legal system, engineering, even politics. There's a lot that we can understand by understanding Roman history. We then move on to medieval times. And learn about the rise of Islam and the Crusades and feudalism. We have a few science blocks, which is a new thing for the 6th graders. Until 5th grade, most of the students learn through stories and impressions and feelings and ideas that they encountered in the classroom. But for the first time in 6th grade, we have true science. We have a physics block. They learn about astronomy, and there's a geology block as well. And all of these are permeated with arts and hands-on activities. And even though we're online, there's so much that we can do. And all of us teachers here at Lotus and Ivy have figured out a way how to really bring these ideas to the children in their homes, that they can experience them through their hands. So we'll paint with them, we'll draw with them, we'll look at rocks together. We'll look outside, we'll look at the movement of the sun, the moon, the stars, to really give them this experience of living the curriculum and experiencing the curriculum. Of course, there's math and language arts. The math also shifts to real life. We learn about business math in 6th grade. It involves hearing things like a percentage and what is an interest and what is a profit, and want the children to really experience what it's like to have to calculate like how much is it gonna be when you sell this and you receive this much money for that, and then you have to pay taxes and those kind of things. The other area of math, of course, is geometry, which for the first time is becoming a formal study of geometry. In fifth grade, it is freehand geometry. We explore shapes by drawing them, by coloring them. And in sixth grade, we go into precision. We become more formal, it's more analytical, and it is way more precise with the use of a compass and a ruler. Um, I think that's it in a nutshell. I want to give my colleagues some time to speak as well. So thank you for listening, and I'll hand it over to Mr. Gay.
Hi, I'm Mr. Gay. Um, like Mr. Domokos is from Florida, coming from Florida. I'm coming from Spain. But originally, I come from South Africa, where I actually attended a Waldorf school for high school. Um, so what I wanted to do, just give you is just a bit of a picture of the child development and how that relates to the curriculum a little bit with this. So the class six students really coming into a different space. So class five is sometimes referred to as the golden age, where there's balance and harmony, which comes with the Greek forms. Sometimes the balance and harmony is short, but it's there. But class six comes into a very different environment because they are suddenly becoming a little bit more grounded in themselves. Their limbs are stronger. They feel much more capable in the world. There's less of that sort of fluid movement of the younger child, but coming a little bit more into themselves. So they're becoming really weighty and in their bodies. And they start to experience a bit more emotional stability. Less dreamy sometimes, a little bit more open to new ideas, and less sort of flighty. But that's just a general. Their peer relationships become more defined. Becoming part of the group starts to become more important than the family or other close bonds. They're starting to branch away from the family group now. That doesn't mean they don't relate strongly with the family, but those social groups are taking on a different dimension for them. And most importantly, when it comes to teaching, what changes for us is there's a shift in their thinking. They've been living in this imaginative realm with the teachers from class one up, and the imagination's not gone, but there's this element of thinking starts coming in a different way than they've experienced before, and this thinking brings them to a much clearer understanding within themselves of cause and effect. It's not to suggest that students younger than this don't understand that, but it's just become something that really lives strongly inside them, and once they see that, then they look out into the world and they see the world slightly differently, and they have an interest in the world, but they're looking also at structures and how things are lawful and fair and organized. And this brings them to a system where they're much more interested in systems and processes and sequences, but all of this is kind of met in the curriculum, and it's just a gentle introduction. We're not going into heavy duty stuff yet, but we're starting to. So like Mr. Mocha says, we start coming into geometry, which is not so freehand anymore, and the sort of form drawing we've done previously now comes into precision. There's some structure coming into it, and there's this change that happens in them, and they really get. And this is why we bring in the sciences, like Mr. Domokos says. So we've got, the sciences, the physics, and we've got astronomy, and we try and work from the point of view of phenomenological. What do we see? What is it we observe? So we're not like in my school days when we were at school, we would get into science class and we'd have a piece of paper on a desk and it said, "We're going to experiment today to prove X." We don't tell them what we're going to prove. We do the experiment and we let the children observe, which means as teachers, when we're doing these things, we have to practice and make sure we get everything spot on. But it's this process of giving the students an opportunity to observe without being sort of spoon-fed. We create the right information for them. And this helps them develop this capacity for cause and effect inside them. And it starts developing their thinking and the way that they perceive the world. They have they don't have as much um, that reverent authoritarian thing about the teacher anymore. The teacher still has authority in the class, but they are looking for much more. Um, they're looking for the teacher to be grounded and reliable and consistent. And not, so they're questioning everything that comes into them. So this makes a real change in the world, and they're asking questions how and why. And the classic parent things, you mustn't do this because I can tell you this. Well, I haven't experienced it. I need to know it. I need to go through the process. So there's this real change in them, and they're moving away from imagination into understanding. That doesn't mean imagination's gone. Imagination still carries us strongly, but the imagination is starting to make way to understanding. And we have these strong elements in the curriculum, like the Romans and the medieval times, which were the Romans were very organized and together and sorted, and they had all these battles and they extended their empire, and they did and all that structure really appeals to them, and they live into those sort of qualities. And then in geography, we're looking out into the world again with geography. We're trying to meet this cause and effect thing of looking geography not as a cultural lesson, but a geography is a lesson of how human beings occupy the environment that they're in. What is the environment? So what is the agriculture? What is the industry? Where are towns built? Why aren't there things? So it's this real thing of how human beings influence the surroundings in them. And for that, we will be looking at Central and South America with all those different things, which is wonderful because there's a lot of fascinating things there. And then, at the end of the year, we're looking at Arthurian legends. There's a story which I've done with classes before, the Sword and the Sword and Stone, but it comes from the Once and Future King series of books, and just using that as a vehicle for language arts and bringing those things into it. And to I think the trick really in class 6 is keeping that, which Mr. Mokus was talking about, this human element needs to be strong. We're bringing all this stuff, but they're starting to move, and we need to have that capacity to, as teachers, to open enough, not to overfeed them and overstimulate and give them too much information, but just start opening that up. And that can take many different forms. And yeah, so Mr. Marcus, one thing I do slightly different because each of us are slightly different with my business maths. I don't even call it business maths in the class. I call it the trade of the study of human trade. So how human beings interact. How did business come? And how did that? So I started with this, my classes. So we start with little traders and their bartering and this, and we have the story of this evolving culture. And it gives them that human element. And then we bring in this much more abstract thinking. And I think that's the big thing for class 6 is there's this real sort of dawning of this abstract thinking coming into the class, something we would associate much of, but in this human imaginative way still, and giving them a capacity to blossom into the curriculum work. That should be enough for me.
Thank you both. Now we want to talk a little bit about what we call our skills classes. So we have our main lessons at Lotus and Ivy. That's where new concepts are introduced. That's really the heart of our curriculum at Lotus and Ivy. But we have our math skills, we have our world language skills, we have language arts skills, and we also have a variety of art and handwork classes. We specifically wanted to talk about the math and language arts today. So Ms. Higgins, if you'll talk just a little bit about yourself and the language arts for class 6, and then we'll go back to Ms. Domokos for math for class 6.
Hi everyone, my name is Gabriela Higgins. A little bit about me is I am currently in South Africa where I grew up, and I was a student at Waldorf schools my whole life, and then I became a class teacher at a Waldorf school, I think the same school where Mr. Gay went for high school. Um, And so I feel very privileged to be in this space of Waldorf education. And I also find it kind of significant that I paused my teaching career in grade 6, and I'm now picking it up again in grade 6. I stopped because I became a parent and had to focus on that for a while. And I really value being here in this meeting, hearing from the main lesson teachers, because as Sarah said, the main lesson is kind of the heart and the space from which the other what do we call them in Lotus and Ivy, the complements,
Skills.
yeah, they support the main lesson, and they also draw inspiration from the main lesson. And so it's good to be able to collaborate as skills teachers with the main lesson teachers. I definitely have experienced this tension that happens in a way, or the beautiful balance that can happen, and the dawning of critical thinking, of interest in structures, along with the kind of still the childhood that is still there, and the imagination and the soft need for a parent or a teacher or whatever. So in the language arts, I'll be teaching 2 lessons a week. One of them is the structure and, the grammar, and looking at phrases and really starting to take sentences apart. And what is so wonderful about that side of language arts is in looking at the structures, there's a revelation. And this is why 2 years ago I had to learn about this part of speech, or this is going to help me with something else in a different part of creative writing, or something. That connections start to be made. We start to reveal through structure possibilities that are unstructured. And then in the creative writing, or the writing and literature studies section, we'll be looking at class novels, like readers, and the aim there really is to deepen comprehension skills and critical thinking. So again, just supporting what is happening in the children's own interests, so whatever books they choose to read, but then also in terms of what's happening in main lessons.
Thank you so much. Okay, yes, and math.
Yeah. So the 6th grade math class also meets twice a week. And we begin each lesson with mental math questions. We spend about 5-10 minutes solving math problems in our heads, which is a lot of fun, and it is a very important skill to develop. And so I gradually increase the difficulty of the questions, and along with that, I also teach little tricks, and sometimes the students discover little tricks for solving math problems in their heads. And we continue working with fractions, something they started in 4th grade and continued in 5th grade. By 6th grade, what I usually see, and I've seen this beautifully this year, is students discover shortcuts themselves. They notice how they can simplify fractions. They know their factors, they know their multiplication tables well enough that they notice things in fractions. They notice how a problem can be solved in multiple different ways. And that's really a fun thing that I experienced in the math class in the last couple of months, especially because I'm teaching the 6th grade math class this year also, is how students raise their hands and say, I solved it this way. And then someone else says, and I solved it in a different way. Can I show it too? And then we look at 2-3 different ways of solving the same thing and getting the same answer. And that tells me that they're really gaining a perspective of these different ideas in math. And they have developed a very strong sense of number, but also a strong sense of the different operations that all kind of tie together. Also, we continue working with decimal numbers, practicing all the operations with decimal numbers. And then we take a little step further, where we even use powers of decimal numbers, and raise decimal numbers and fractions to powers, and use those fractions for maybe finding the area of a rectangle or a square that has a side that is not an integer, not a whole number. So kind of stretching our knowledge a little bit in this direction and that direction, just using the foundation that we already have. Percentages are introduced in the main lesson, and then we practice calculating percentages in class. We were just doing it this week. The students brought receipts from their shopping from last week, and we compared tax rates in different states and different countries, and we discovered that some states do not have a sales tax, and how wonderful it is for them. So there's lots of fun moments, and being spread out across the world brings such a variety to the class and so many surprises and interesting moments. That some students join us wearing a t-shirt sitting on a balcony while the other student shows us snow in the background on the same day at the same time. And so just how we are all spread out over, and we also have different experiences, and we bring those to every class. And in math, these things pop up, and it's so much fun, and there's so much laughter, and there's so much curiosity about how other people live. Let's go back to math. So percentages, decimals, fractions, we learn about different types of averages, area of triangles and rectangles, and there are lots and lots of games that I bring to the class that are math games that reinforce the different concepts that we are learning. In addition to meeting with me twice a week, the students also meet once a week without me in small groups. And that's where they continue playing the games. I sometimes give them discovery assignments where I want them to work through a series of math problems and hopefully notice some patterns. And it's a really joyous moment when they themselves discover mathematical processes or formulas or mathematical rules, and then they bring them those back to class and share them with the whole class. So just like in other subjects, how we observe things in sciences, I also like to bring math problems that help the students understand how things work in math, not just simply blindly giving them formulas to use. We work on questions until someone says, "Oh, I noticed that this happened, this and this happens every single time." And then we write down those rules using our own words and summarize them in a main lesson book. And then that main lesson book, even though we're not in a main lesson, is just a nice clean book where there are summaries of the main math concepts, and the students keep those on their desks during math class. And if they forget something, they can always refer to them. And the beauty of that is that it's all in their own handwriting with their own coloring and decoration. So it's a very memorable, there's a visual memory that also connects to the concept. I think that's about it in a nutshell. Thank you very much.
Okay. Well, thank you. You've heard about our wonderful sixth grade program at Lotus and Ivy. We also have, you can see our class catalog on our website, but I just wanted to mention painting and drawing, Spanish. Our needle felting this year for class 5 and 6 is mythic creatures of the ancient world. So I've seen some samples probably 3 years ago when they did that the first time, and it's a lot of fun. And new this year for 5th and 6th grade is eurythmy. If you know Miss Tesha Brown, she's a teacher at Lotus and Ivy. You might know her from physics and chemistry in 7th and 8th grade. She's also taught one of our early grades main lessons. She's a eurythmy teacher, and she's happy to be bringing our 5th and 6th graders eurythmy this year. So that's something to check out to just really balance the schedule and the whole curriculum. If you have any questions, you can email us, call us, text us. You can do all of that from our website. We're happy to answer your questions. Enrollment is open, and we are looking forward to seeing you all next year. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye-bye.